as Larry told Bullwinkle, is the candle of joy. The third Sunday of Lent and the third Sunday of Advent, both are candles of joy, pink, gaudete. A gift to be found. And so the ancient wisdom of the church is to direct us, as Larry said, to something deeper than just a feeling. But I think it's fair to say that in 2020, it is difficult to imagine where we might find joy. And each one of us will answer that question differently. Where will we find joy? And my job here as lead minister is not to point to somewhere and say, there is joy. You should look at what I'm pointing to, pay attention to it because it's right here. Because for some people, that would just be plain annoying, and for other people, it would have no content at all. But there is joy, and I think what we can do as an individual and as a community of faith is find out ways that we can embrace it. I'm willing to take the risk of suggesting a few places we might look, knowing that for you, there are many different paths of finding it, but that we do understand it is worth the searching time. We might find that there are one or two things we have in common, places of searching and places of finding that actually overlap between your search and another person, but that's not a guarantee. The rest is very personal. It's unique to each one of us and changes as our spirituality changes year from year. Paying attention would be the first point of how we find joy. Paying attention not to what anyone else points to as the place where joy is to be found, but to what's going on for you. Paying attention to your own life, your own heart, your own spirit, as we get well into this December, where grim numbers continue to be part of the news every day in British Columbia, the rest of Canada, and in the globe. And so, what are we paying attention to? Where does our gaze fall? Where do our spare thoughts go? Where do we find ourselves ruminating as we have time, if we do, for a walk? My phone often blips with notifications. Now, I know you can turn them off, and I've turned them off for almost all the apps I've got, but I want to be the first one to know when the Pope elopes. And so when that comes up on my phone, I want to be there. But mostly, I've turned them off. I've refused to know a lot of information that the world is giving me with those very clever algorithms designed by PhD students to keep me connected. They keep on popping up, though, those headlines on the corner of my computer screen while I'm Zooming, even when I'm Zooming and talking to other people. And I can see that other people in the Zoom meeting are getting the same notification because we all kind of look off for a second and then respond to that notice. So what's going on for us? What's going on for you? Have you taken just some time, turn it all off, and notice where your heart is this December 2020? You know, we think we're multitasking when we do, we're baking with the phone ready and maybe even talking on the phone. We have the computer up in the background, perhaps the news on, the living room. We call it multitasking, but you know, our brains can't multitask. They just do a whole bunch of things over and over again. They flip the channel. It's not good for us to spend hours so-called multitasking. If we notice that and shut down some of those inputs, where would you be? What would you find? It's not that I'm saying we need to divorce ourselves from social media or the news, but maybe cut it back for the remainder of Advent so that we might have some spare room in our hearts and our minds to notice what's going on for us, to pay attention if we do feel that deeper gift of joy. The sacred spirit is so often revealed in the gifts of Mother Nature. I'm so grateful for this greenery. You can't tell yet. We don't have scents around, but it smells like Christmas up here in this pulpit. Maybe you can recall recent walks in the woods, or even walks that took place years or decades ago. You can remember that even on the days when we're staying inside. I wonder what images come to your mind in times of quiet recollection. The legacy, see, is what we create when we have time to be in nature. And we never know when we may want to open that photo album of legacy that's built into our own psyches, our own hearts and memories. And to spend some time again, maybe by a beach watching the tide. It could be Maui, it could be Dallas Point. And allowing Mother Nature to speak a deep message to us of presence, of peace. It's a mystical legacy, that we have been building for ourselves every time we allow it to happen. You can be walking through the city and hear the splash of a water fountain, and it can remind you of something beautiful and tranquil, of a waterfall that you saw in a national park years ago. The splash takes you there. But what about the silence of the stars at night? Remembering perhaps if you've seen the aurora borealis, which are not silent. But another part of the spiritual legacy we've been building for ourselves of a different kind of resource. The mystery of seeing a bulb push through the soil. The little plants that I had at Thanksgiving, they're green now, those little bulbs. I don't think they'll be blooming by Christmas, but maybe. Memory is a rich spiritual assembly of resources now. And a time of slowing down, we can let those memories speak to us. And maybe there's joy in those memories. As Bullwinkle was saying, remembering times with people. Other Christmases, other holidays, chance conversations, or very important conversations. Some reminiscences, of course, when we slow down and allow ourselves to remember, some reminiscences hold poignant images of the past, grief or loss, people gone too soon, questions we've asked for many years without answers. In this series of Advent values, peace, hope, joy, we have looked at those values, those virtues during a global pandemic. A rising crisis right across North America with a poison drug supply called the opioid crisis. Extraordinary rates of homelessness in many places across Canada. Every day in Advent, as every other day of the year, holds a sad anniversary for someone. Our faith asks us to honor this complexity, and it is complex, which comes with living in a community, having relationships, none of which can be permanent, and caring about other members in that global human family. Our love for other people can be with us for the entirety of our lives. Our love for a place in nature can be a long-lasting spiritual resource. That deeper connection with the sacred spirit reassures us even when those other connections feel less strong, that we are embraced and held and loved by God. The opening lines of our creed from the 1960s still are so evocative. We are not alone. We live in God's world. The Emmanuel Story, as we heard today from St. Mark's Gospel, starts with, for him, St. John's proclamation. We know what happened to John when he spoke truth to power. A tragic end to that prophet. Jesus came and took the message that John taught, took the people, the same situations, and provided that great reminder that he calls us his friends, that there is a love deeper than anything else that he offers to us. One of the books that many people in this congregation refer to often is this little one here. It's called Embers by Richard Wagamese. It was the last book published before his death, one Ojibwe's Meditations. I would really commend it to you this time of year, or I guess any time of year. But when we're looking for joy, that deep, penetrating spiritual joy, there's something he says here that I would like to close with. It's found on page 170, because I know many of you have this book. Standing in the early morning chill, clearing the car of snow, scraping ice from the windows, I look up, and around me at a morning filled with things to see, the way the ice fog magnifies the mountain in the near distance so that it appears closer, the ballet of cat tracks in the snow, the bare trees slumped like a great sleeping bear under the white rug of winter. It occurs to me that the secret of being here, fully being here, walking the skin of this planet, is to learn to see things as though I was looking at them for the first time or the last. Nothing is too small then, too mundane, too usual. Everything is wonder. Everything is magical. Everything moves my spirit, and I am spiritual. Our prayer this third Sunday of Advent is that we might know the wonder that feeds our joy, that we are embraced by the sacred Spirit of God who witnessed our creation, that we too might say, nothing is too small, too mundane, too usual. May it be so for us. Amen.